You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we'll be caught in a greasy web in Fab Facts.
The Randomiser is sure to send a shiver up your spine.
And it's time for puppets, pornography, and penury. Leo Eaton joins us for a chat.
Richard, wash your mouth out. That's all coming up in Pod 124.
Sorry, of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Is that the reaction people will have when they hear we said pornography in the introduction?
Jamie, no, it's Halloween, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yes, it is absolutely Halloween. Happy. Well, it's not Halloween yet. This is just prior to Halloween.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
It's Halloween.
Yes.
Hallow-week.
Yes, that'll do.
Happy Hallow-week. You're Richard James. I'm Gerry Anderson, and this is
The Gerry Anderson Podcast. We're here for at least an hour and a half with all the usual stuff. We've got some news from the Gerry Anderson universe coming up very shortly. We've got Chris Dale popping by with his amazing randomiser, of course, whereby he sits down in front of a random episode from a Gerry Anderson series and gives us his thoughts and comments. We've got Fab Facts in just a little while. We've got some emails, messages, tweets, and Facebook messages from our wonderful Podsterons. And Jamie, I believe we've got the first in a, let's say, multi-part interview with Leo Eaton.
We do, yes. Leo Eaton, who joined Century 21, well, I mean, he'll tell you all about it later, but around Captain Scarlet time, he was involved in, directing the Zoom Ice Lolly adverts.
Ah,
Very
great.
excitingly. He wrote and directed Joe 90 episodes, Secret Service, and he worked on and was fired from UFO.
Really?
We'll probably learn about that next week. But Leo is great. He's a great value interviewee. Obviously, he was there in the Century 21 days. He was a very young man, so different perspective to a lot of our interviewees. And, he was very open and slightly sweary about his involvement.
Right.
So you can expect some noises to cover those swears.
Yeah. Now, that's very interesting, Jamie, because I've often wondered just what it takes to be fired from a production. What does it take? What have I got to do?
Well, we'll have to find out exactly, but
Yeah.
I have a feeling he has something in common with you in that respect. But let's wait and hear possibly next week about that particular
Right.
dalliance, shall we say.
All right.
Is that the right word?
Yeah, that'll do.
Probably is. Anyway, what's Chris Dale doing today? Is he polishing
Well,
boots?
actually, I sent him down to
woodworking?
I can just see him coming back now from the shop, but I sent him out for some eggs and flour because we're going to go out later and pelt all the neighbours' houses for Halloween. Yeah?
Great. Yeah, you're the sort of people that are my worst nightmare.
Trick
Appropriately
and
for Halloween.
treat, we call it.
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
Bless you.
Actually, that's the thing. If you get someone knocking at your door on Halloween and they say trick or treat, the best thing to do is say treat, please. That stumps them every time.
Yes, I guess it is. I've never been trick-or-treating.
Okay. Well, come on, then. Let's go this year. You and me.
We're going to be
In
skipping up
lockdown in
the
South
street,
Wales.
holding hands. Yeah, no, I'm not allowed out of Caerphilly at the minute, so
No.
sorry about that. Let's hope, Richard,
Yes.
that we manage to actually do something Halloween-related in this episode, although I feel like we won't. Maybe Chris will save us with the randomiser. Let's see if something ghostly happens there.
All right.
But until then, shall we leap straight in, head first, to Fab Facts?
I mean, that's pretty scary.
Rude.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Is there something ghostly we can rename Fab Facts? I really should have thought this through.
Yeah, we should, really, shouldn't we? Spooky facts. No,
Spook
no, I
facts.
can't. Ghost facts. It doesn't really work, does
Fab-
it?
Phantoms.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
Go on.
Anyway,
Come
this is Fab Facts, where I flick through a book of Fab Facts.
Yep.
Richard shouts, Fang. Fang Facts?
Okay.
How about that?
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
Good.
We get our teeth into
Yeah.
a Fang fact from
Yes.
the world of Gerry Anderson.
Yes.
So Richard's going to shout Fang this week. Aren't
Great.
you, Richard? Go on, do it.
Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
And we'll pick a fact based on that. So here we are.
Fang!
Nice. Gosh, this is really great. And interestingly, we have a spectrum fact.
Oh,
Is that
right.
Spectre? Is that
Spectrum.
Is
Okay,
that
go on.
good?
Yeah, we'll give you that one.
Spectral?
Yeah,
Anyway.
Yes. No, that's good.
Richard, you'll like this because we're going to start off with a connected series, sort of.
All right.
Do tell me, what is your favourite Doctor Who story?
Mordrin Undead.
The Web
Peter
Planet,
Davison.
of course.
What?
Yes, I knew it would be the Web Planet. Funny that.
yeah, that's what I
'cause
said,
That
yes,
relates
sorry.
directly to what we're trying to do.
I see.
Talk about in this Fang fact.
Yes.
So almost all of our listeners will almost undoubtedly have answered the Web Planet. I mean, who
Would they?
wouldn't?
Okay, go on. Yeah, I'll play along.
But for those who have not seen the Web Planet, it's one of the weirder black and white stories set on a planet of insects.
Yes.
They wanted to make it seem alien because I would say it's not unfair to pass judgment on those costumes and say that they're not that successful from the Web Planet.
I don't know. It's the Zarbi and the Menoptera, isn't it?
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
they're
fine. Well, you
great.
think they're great. Well, they didn't think they were alien looking enough.
Yeah.
So they wanted to find a way to make it look more alien. And the way they did that was to smear Vaseline on the camera lens,
Right.
giving
Did
a
that
sort
help?
of weird blurry effect. Well, I don't know. Did
Yeah.
you? Yeah, no, not very effective
Okay.
for you. Well, clearly the production team on Captain Scarlet thought it was effective because they borrowed the technique for the opening episode. So when you see the Mysteron city, it's got a weird kind of blurring
Yes.
to it.
It has.
And that is all thanks to Vaseline being smeared on the lens. It was used in the interior shots of the Mysteron complex and also on the little scanner thing that Captain Black mistakes for being a weapon,
Yes.
which starts the War of Nerves.
How interesting.
So, yes, the start of that war was lubricated, shall we say, by Vaseline on the lens.
Okay, now, yeah, right. But what was the intention? What was the effect there? Because it looks rather ethereal and a bit sort of almost like a mirage, doesn't it?
Well,
Is that-
then mission
that's-
accomplished, I'd say,
Yeah,
because that's
okay.
what they're after. Something to make it look more alien and weird. I guess, you know, the Mysteron complex is a cool building, is a cool model set,
Yeah.
but it still has a kind of clean cutness to it.
Yeah.
And I guess it just, you know, lifted it an extra little bit to make it look weirder.
And did you know they did something similar, but digitally, in an episode of Babylon 5, where they had an alien race, and again, they weren't too happy with it on set, so they sort of smeared it digitally with some weird effects before it was broadcast.
I did
So,
not
you know.
know. Digital Vaseline there on,
There we are.
on Babylon 5.
Yes, I must put in my order today.
There you go. So you can go and check out those little clips from Captain Scarlet and see what you think and see if you can do a direct comparison with the Web Planet and see the similar visual smearing.
Look forward to it.
Good. Thought you would. Right, I think that's quite enough of that. That's the end of this week's Fang Fact.
That's much better. Very good. Oh, that sends quite a chill down my spine.
I often do.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Now, people have been getting in touch with us, of course, here at the Gerry Anderson podcast by simply emailing us podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Would you like to hear some of the aforementioned emails?
I would, please. And is it possible that you can somehow make the senders of them sound spookier by changing their names?
Okay.
Well, you can
first-
start them off, and if you can't think of one, then I'll try and work on it
Yeah.
while you're reading it.
All right, well, this one's from Chris Evans.
Right.
Chris Heavens, I suppose. That's not. No, that's a bit.
Yeah.
That's not really Halloween. Anyway, dear gents, he says it's not that Chris Evans again. Writing to you some pods ago, or rather after I wrote last time, way back in pod 12. Pod
Gosh.
12, and he's only just got in touch again. He says I have a suggestion for a possible future guest interviewee. American producer, director, YouTuber. Host of the Burnett Work YouTube channel and pop culture enthusiast Robert Meyer Burnett. Rob was interviewed on a recent edition of the World Balloon Comics and Pop Culture podcast, and during the course of the conversation mentioned his love for the various Gerry Anderson productions, especially Thunderbirds and Space 1999. Hope you're able to reach out to Rob and arrange a chat with him about all things Gerry Anderson. Anyway, love the pod as always. Keep up the good work. Stay safe and healthy. All the best from Chris. It's an interesting one. I don't know of Rob's work. Have you heard of Rob before?
Yes,
Rob
we
Burnett?
haven't. We've mentioned him on a previous podcast, and I've messaged
really?
him on Twitter, and we're trying to arrange for him to come on at some point, but it's probably not going to be this year.
Oh, really? I suppose we're almost at the end, aren't we? Andrew Curry. How do I make that?
Andrew
Halloween.
Scary.
Right.
Scary. We're not doing very well at this, are we?
No. Hello, Richard and Jamie, says Andrew. I was pleased to hear in the last podcast that there are some new Space Precinct short stories coming up. Yes, quite a while to go before then, Andrew. I've got to write them first. Mashups are popular these days, and as a keen reader of Richard's Bowman of the Yard novels, right, I would pay good money to see Inspector Bowman do a Buck Rogers and jump forward in time to work with the Demeter City Police, perhaps investigating the mysterious disappearance of Lieutenant Brogan's irritating family. Hopefully, he won't find them. Looking forward to the new stories from Andrew Curry. It's a possibility, isn't it, I suppose? Bit of a mashup.
Might be a licensing nightmare.
Yeah, just slightly. Now, Joe's got in touch to say, just
Joe,
a little...
not Joe 90.
No, I don't think so. I think it's Joe Etheridge.
Oh, phew.
Yeah, you'll be relieved to hear. Just a little thought in the last few minutes or moments at the end of your podcast, where you have a little chat and remark on the day. For the diehard listeners who are left, how about naming those listeners similar to the Podsterons? You could give an exclusive for the diehard fans at the end, create some merch. Perhaps call them Podstars, Terrapods, or the 1010s. Have a good week from Joe. It's quite a nice idea, isn't it?
It is. Do you want to pick one random this week?
I like the diehards.
The diehards.
But of course, the inference there from Joe is that not everyone listens right to the end, which I find...
that's nonsense. I cannot believe that. In fact,
Must be.
Do you know what, Richard? Our podcast hosts, Captivate, have recently introduced
Oh, no.
the ability to look at how far through people are listening.
I don't want to know, Joe.
Is
it about now?
I'm going to go... yeah, we suddenly had 90% drop-off. I'm going to go and look at that.
Oh, no!
Have you got any more emails while I do that?
Yeah. Just keep it to yourself. This one's from Emma Nichols, who says, Hi, Jamie, Richard, and Podsterons. I have been watching Thunderbirds from the age of 3, and there's one thing that always puzzled me. Why is Hiram K. Hackbacker called Brains? From Emma Nichols. I mean, I should imagine it's because he comes up with all the plans and ideas, I would think.
Yeah.
It's just a good nickname. And finally, Chris Zaremba says, Hi, Jamie and Richard, and greetings from Marlow, just down the road from me. He says, it's not easy cramming so much podcast wonderfulness in 10 words. This is following your idea last week, Jamie, or the week before, that people try and sum up their listening experience of the Gerry Anderson podcast in 10 words or fewer.
Yes.
But here, says Chris, is my entry. Fantastic Fab Facts, Interview 2, Randomiser, Bring Joy to You. It rhymes as well, that's nice. And hello from all at Marlow FM. I'm looking forward to when we can do studio interviews again. Richard, you're next on my list, says Chris. Well, yes, be very happy to do that, Chris. So thank you for getting in touch.
Cheers, Chris. Now, Richard, I've got some stats for you here.
Oh, go on, then.
Guess what percentage of our listeners listen through to the final minute, which includes our post-credits banter?
About 7%?
More.
Really? 20%?
More than that.
More than 20%?
I know.
A third? 33.3?
That's very close indeed. 37.92% of our listeners make it through.
Fair enough.
To the final bants. So if you're one of the rather foolish 62.08%, that's probably wrong, of our listeners who do not listen through, then you are missing out on some...
On very little.
Some pointless chit-chat.
Yeah. That's right.
There you go. Some
that's
live,
not too bad.
live podcast analytics there.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of you who've written in. If you'd like to write in and be mentioned by one Richard Neinstein James, then you can do so by emailing podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk or tweeting us, I'm Jamie Anderson, or him, Richard N. James, or him over there at Chris Dalek, and using the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Now, Richard, I think it's time we moved on to some Gerry Anderson news.
Oh, go on then.
And now I'm reading it straight into the Gerry Anderson news. Go on, Richard. Now you feel like you need to say your bit now. Go on, say it.
I'm going to do it in a spooky way. Newsy news. Yeah.
Wow.
How was that?
I mean, I'm utterly terrified. But despite that, I think I'm still going to make it through the news. Here we go. Yes, it's the Gerry Anderson News. Lots of merch this week, so let's get started with Andrew Skilleter.
Very nice.
Yes, the well-known illustrator who's done a lot of comic stuff that you'll know, the complete Thunderbird story and all of his prints in the Gerry Anderson store. Well, one of those has made its way to a t-shirt. The most popular of his prints is the trio, which shows Thunderbirds, Stingray and Scarlet all in one image. Well, that has now been applied to a t-shirt and it looks rather marvellous.
Great.
If you like multiple shows from the Anderverse on your chest, well, this is the way to make that happen. If you have bought an Andrew Skilleter print in the past, you will receive a 10% off voucher if you would like to get this particular design on a t-shirt. That should be in your inbox by now or any moment now. If you've bought a Skilleter print before and didn't get the email, then just drop a line to support@gerryanderson.co.uk and we'll get that out to you straight away. What else have we got? Well, it's Farewell Friday. Yes, if you're listening to this on the day of release, then there's a load of products that are being retired. So go and have a look there. If you go to the shop, to shop.gerryanderson.co.uk, look up on the special offers part of the menu and you'll see there a Farewell Friday collection. Those will be available to the end of today, and if you missed this week's Farewell Friday, then there will be some more products being listed this coming Friday.
Oh, good.
And that'll be the same for a few weeks to come. So don't delay, because those things are disappearing. Now, looking at my news notes here, I've got something that says nose hooks. No, it doesn't. It says notebooks. There's a new range of Gerry Anderson notebooks featuring iconic designs from all of your favourite Gerry Anderson organisations. Well, Spectrum, International Rescue, Moonbase Alpha, that sort of stuff. They're rather lovely and a great way to sort of subtly, I suppose not that subtly, show your love of everything Anderson. If you head over to the YouTube channel, you may well have already seen it, but there's another little Firestorm mini-sode. It's an animatronics test that we did a little while back as part of our latest round of development on the series, made on virtually zero budget, enough to buy the crew tea and I think a couple of bacon rolls, and it was our little kind of test attempt which we turned into a mini-sode for your enjoyment, so I hope you've enjoyed that.
Yes.
Don't forget the Halloween collection, Dragon's Domain, Porky the Butchery Boy, and the villains lineup. Grab those in time for Halloween. I don't know whether you're staying at home or going out. I suspect staying at home in the current climate, but at least you can sort of celebrate spooky season in style that way. And finally for this week, First Action Bureau episode 7. It's all coming to a bit of a head for Nero Jones and First Action Bureau. Things are ramping up, so if you haven't tried First Action Bureau yet, what are you doing? You're a podcast listener. Surely you should try it.
Yes.
If you have tried it, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're loving it. Please do leave us a review. And episode 7 is out this Thursday from about 5:30 a.m. UK time. And that is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. Very spooky news.
Wasn't that spooky?
I mean, no, it wasn't really, was it? I'm just trying my best to engender a little sort of, Halloween spookiness into proceedings.
Yeah.
Is it working?
Yeah, I think so. I'm really feeling it. I want to go and create a Zeroid pumpkin now. You've said that.
Yes, exactly. Now, you say that over on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, Tom Hodden came up with a wonderful idea whereby people post their Gerry Anderson themed Halloween cosplay outfits.
Ooh.
So if you want to see what fun our lovely Podsterons get up to on the 31st of October, pop on over to the group, answer a few questions and we'll let you in and you can join in the fun. For example, lots of people this week I've noticed have been sharing their new t-shirts that they've bought from the Gerry Anderson store. Josh Long, for example, posted his lovely Captain Scarlet t-shirt saying, "Channeling my inner Scarlet. What's your favourite Captain Scarlet episode?" he asked. Dave Monday posted a picture of him wearing his new Stingray t-shirt and said, "This arrived just in time to wear for my wisdom tooth removal."
Ooh,
anything
ouch.
could happen in the next half hour, he said. Well, hope that went well, Dave. Matty Kescavari said that he just watched another Thunderbird episode with his dad. Again, hashtag fab parenting. And I wonder if Edge of Impact is the only instance when my home country gets a mention of some kind in any Anderson show. His home country being Finland.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It may well be.
Niche. Yeah, could well be. Now, on a similar theme, Yuhan posted, okay, to sort of answer Chris's question in a previous podcast about any Gerry Anderson stories being set in Ireland, though not a main setting, I'm quite sure that Scott had to set up a tracking station at a barn on the West Irish coast in Operation Crash Dive. During the first Fireflash rescue operation. The farmer was nice enough to send Scott home with milk and eggs. Also,
Sounds like
Doug
a visit
Morris,
to my place.
Yeah, that's right. Doug Morris posted, in the UFO episode, A Question of Priorities, an alien ejects in a pod from a UFO before it crashes into the sea off the west coast of Ireland. The blind old lady that befriends the alien presumably lives in the cottage on the Irish mainland. There
you go. See, wealth of knowledge are Podsterons.
Yes, exactly. Jeff Owen posted a picture of Rob Youngblood, who he spotted on TV, saying, "Look who just showed up in this episode of Sequest DSV I'm watching. I'm sure Richard recognises him." Indeed, I did. And Lee Homer says, "I was watching Journey Through the Black Sun earlier, and it made me think. In this compilation film, they kind of made it out that Ara from Collision Course is this cosmic intelligence that Bergman was referring to, and it kind of works, but personally, I would have liked it to have been the space brain. I know a lot of fans hate the super space theatre stuff, but they kind of fascinate me. Would Journey Through the Black Sun have worked better if they compiled Space Brain with the Black Sun instead? Who knows, says Lee. I mean, I don't know, because all of that meant very little to me.
I mean, you made it sound like you knew every single
Thanks.
word.
I'm an actor, dear boy.
Very impressive stuff. Nice. Yeah, maybe we should get David Hirsch on, who was responsible for the Super Space Theatre stuff, and see whether he likes that idea, or if he could do it all again, if he changed it, or delete the whole lot.
Yeah,
maybe one for next year.
Absolutely, which isn't so very far away. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Leave us a nice rating and share the link with your friends so they get to hear us too. That's all from our Facebook group. Some tweets coming up a little later on.
Cool. You do love a good tweet, as you
me
know.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely things. While we wait for tweets, tweet on. Let's have Leo eat on. No.
Tweet on, eat on. Yeah.
Can you think of any spooky reversioning of Leo's name? I mean, I'm struggling
Leo,
a bit.
Eaton.
Eaton?
Like, he's been eaten.
Oh, Leo has been eaten in the end. Let's stop there.
It's
Anyway,
really difficult, isn't it? We should have really sat down beforehand and worked this out, Jamie.
if only we had properly scripted this rather than me sending it to you 9 minutes after we were supposed to have started recording. Anyway, Leo Eaton is an Emmy award-winning executive producer, director and writer who's all sorts of interesting connections into the worlds of not just Gerry Anderson, but a very well-known horror movie, which is an excellent connection for Halloween. So Leo is going to tell us all about puppets, pornography, penury,
What?
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and many other fascinating things that he's been connected with throughout his professional life. This is part one of more than one. Over to you, Leo Eaton.
I'm Leo Eaton. I started making films on 8mm when I was 16 years old. And I am still making films at the ripe old age of 74. So I guess I've been in this business quite a long time. I actually began when I left school, public school in England, and went with a couple of sort of hiccups to get into the industry, went to work at Associated British Studios and worked on The Saint and The Avengers and Gideon's Way. And it was actually there that Frank Holland, who was the first assistant and I was the second assistant on The Saint, moved over to Century 21. And he said, "Why don't you come with me?" And so I did my stint at Century 21. We'll come back to that one, but left under a certain cloud. In other words, your dad fired me.
We'll definitely get into that.
Actually, he didn't fire me from the puppets. He fired me from UFO, which is a whole nother story.
Okay.
I figured I would never get another job in the industry again. One of those, oh my God. Also, I'd broken up with my girlfriend at the time, so I hopped a cargo ship, ended up in Mexico, lived there on and off for a while, hitchhiked around America, ended up teaching at the University of Texas, pretending I had a degree, which I didn't. Let's see, these are the early days. Oh, yeah, when I was hitchhiking, I ended up, you know who Ed Wood is?
Yeah.
I shared an office with him in Los Angeles when
Amazing.
I was... oh, yeah, and also when I was teaching at UT, my students went off and made a little low-budget movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I always joke about, forget any film I've ever made in my life. Nobody cares about those. What people care about is 3 things I've done in my life. 1, I did Captain Scarlet and Joe 90 in the Puppet series. 2, I shared an office with Ed Wood. And 3, my students shot Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's all the thing that's important. Nothing else matters. But I then went off to, wandered around the world, lived in Greece for 3 years with my then wife, lived in Portugal, lived in England, for a while, came back to the States in 80, and have been making films, documentaries ever since. And won a couple of Emmy Awards, DuPont Columbia Award, work a lot with, you're probably familiar with this, but work a lot with the British historian Michael Wood. I executive produced most of the BBC PBS series we've done together. He's also a very close friend. And just keep making films. So that's me.
An amazing intro. I couldn't really ask for better than that, to be honest, as a sort of concentrated biography. And I'm really sorry that we're going to be focusing on one of the things that people tend to focus on. So I hope you won't mind if we are leaning heavily.
That is quite all right. I'll plug my latest film and my latest book afterwards.
We will absolutely get to that, I promise. Okay, so you gave me some hints about how you got into the industry and Century 21 in particular. I did hear you said you went to an English public school. Can I ask which one that was?
Marlborough.
Marlborough?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so you are a proper English boy, really, at heart.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even
but
though
I was shipped off to boarding school at the age of 4.
Oh.
And it didn't have any effect on me whatsoever.
Well, I have to say, Leo, you said you were 74 in that intro. You do not look anywhere near 74. So whatever's happened in your life, it's clearly done you very well. Or you've just got incredibly good genes. Maybe both. I don't know. So just tell me a bit about your grounding in the industry before Century 21. Just very briefly, kind of how did you get in? What skills did you pick up that set you up for that?
Okay, yeah. I mean, when I was 16 at Marlborough, and I was very much, little lost as one is. And my mother was an actress, so holidays, when she was around, I'd often tour with her in the theatre. But a lot of time I just spent including the holidays at school. And I was given, I was given a 35mm still camera, and I found it bored me because it only clicked. And I swapped it for an 8mm camera and started making films at Marlborough. And decided that when I was 16, 17, that's what I wanted to do with my life. Left Marlborough, and immediately there was absolutely no point in going to a university. There were no degrees in film at that point. And started looking for a way to get into the industry. And in those days, the ACT, which was the film union, it was an absolute closed shop. You couldn't join the union until you had a job, and you couldn't get a job until you joined the union. And so I spent 6 months doing the Wardour Street crawl, knocking on every film company in Wardour Street. And I had a very dotty old grandmother who said to me, "Oh, don't worry, dear boy, I'll get you a job in the film industry." I remember I was just 18, and I said, "Oh, come on, Gran, you don't know a thing about it." Well, about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the head of the film unit at the Central Office of Information. "My mother takes tea with your grandmother and says we should meet."
Amazing.
At that point, the Central Office of Information wasn't unionized. The union was desperately trying to get it unionized. So I got a job doing basically a production assistant on a thing called This Week in Britain, which were little 6-minute documentaries that were put out all over the world every week. And it was great. It was a great experience. I did that for about 9 months until I got my union ticket. Immediately resigned, and then started wandering around the studios and just literally sat in the waiting room of Johnny Goodman, who was a production manager of The Saint at the time, until he finally took pity on me and gave me a job as a third assistant. And I remember, it's a story I've told a lot, but it doesn't hurt for telling it again. There was a tough old, the first assistants in those days really were gods. I mean, the directors were scared stiff of them. And the first assistant on The Saint was a guy, his name, I don't remember his name now, but he was a tough old Irishman, probably about 55, 60. Everybody was scared, really scared of him. And here's this trembling little public school boy who walks onto the set wondering, where am I, what am I doing? And he said words that I have never forgotten and still quote to people today, which is, and you'll have to excuse my language, I never want to see you, but when I take one step backwards, I want to tread on you. And if you think about it, it is the perfect description. Be there, stay out of my way, watch everything I do. So I started as a third on The Saint. Saint ended at one stage, they went into hiatus. I went on to The Baron as a second assistant. Then came back when Roger Moore picked up The Saint again, came back as a second assistant on The Saint, and Frank Holland was the first. And that was when Frank was offered the job as production manager with your dad. And he asked me if I'd like to come with him, and met Gerry for the first time and Sylvia together. And they sort of said, yeah, this is all interesting. You've got good background, and we're trying to professionalize Century 21. As an AD, maybe you can really bring a level of professionalism into it. And I thought, sounds great. So I began as the first at the Slough Trading Estate. I guess it might have been 67, might have been. When did Captain Scarlet start?
67, yeah. They probably were doing pre-production late 66, I guess.
Yeah, because the first thing Gerry had me do is, I always remember, that's when I decided I was never going to go into advertising. He had me doing some commercials for Lions Made ice lollies. Remember those? And I remember sitting in a room with a bunch of advertising executives, all discussing terribly seriously the exact angle that Lady Penelope should hold the ice lolly. And I thought, no, this isn't the world for me.
Was that a bit of a come down coming to Century 21 and being so, so we want to professionalise, maybe you can bring that to us. Now, film these ice lollies, Leo.
It was all, I was 18, 19, 20, I was 22 then, because I was still on The Saint when I was 21. Okay. But, it was fun. It was just little kids.
So you were full of youthful exuberance and...
Oh, absolutely.
Naivety as well, is that...
Oh, yeah. Oh, you could say that.
Okay, we'll say that. Now, before joining, did you have any awareness of what Century 21 had done? Had you been,
Oh, yeah. No, Thunderbird, I loved Stingray. I don't think I ever watched Supercar, but Stingray was, absolutely, I loved it. And then Thunderbird, we all watched Thunderbirds.
Okay. Well,
Thunderbird, it was just what you watched.
Exactly. It was a British staple then and now, I think.
And so when I met Gerry, so he said, right, well, you can AD them, and if you work out, we will give you a chance to direct. And that sounded like a pretty 21 years old.
Yeah.
Pretty darn good deal to me.
Amazing. And so what was the kind of atmosphere like around Century 21? Did it have a kind of family feel? I know they're saying they're looking to professionalise. So, what was the atmosphere like when you joined?
The atmosphere, it was a family. A lot of us used to, particularly the sort of, I used to call them later the young Turks, Ken Turner, myself. Alan Perry less, he was a little bit older. David Anderson, who joined soon after I did. We'd go out to the pub at lunch. Can't believe you would go and drink 2 pints at lunch and then come back and work. But, it was very much a family atmosphere. And then we'd eat in I'm sure you've heard stories of the canteen.
I don't think I've heard enough stories of the canteen, Leo. Go on, run one.
All I remember is, years later when one first started getting these sort of, meals on planes, I said, I'm back in the Century 21 canteen. because they were all mass-produced with, silver foil that was, and you pulled it off, and you ate your whatever it was, but it was very hard. But we went out to the pub.
That's another reason to go down to the pub, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. So just talk me through your kind of progression then from first days, doing your iSolly commercials, and then getting onto the series. What were you doing day to day, and how did you make that progression?
Well, I think the Ice Lolly ones were Gerry's. I might have actually been ADing before I did the Ice Lolly commercials. That might have been his sort of first saying, can I direct these things? So the timing's it's a long time ago.
Of course.
But I vividly remember coming in thinking, now I'm a first assistant director. I'm really going to do this right. And, a film set is very, very precise. And it's, the red light goes on, everyone's quiet. And I remember one of the first times I just sort of say we were about to start shooting. I said, right, quiet. And the puppeteer from up on the rail said, why? We're not recording sound here. It was a little bit of an adjustment.
I expect so. So, I mean, working with the puppets in general, how many sort of new skills were you learning doing that versus coming off something like The Saint, where it is like...
Oh, it was totally different. I mean, you very soon realized that your job as an assistant was just helping the director with the, with all of the drawing out, the, doing everything that needed to be done to plan. And the planning was much more precise. I mean, everything had to be planned. If you were going to move from left to right with a puppet and then cut to something else, even the move had to be pre-thought. Because you'd sort of tell the puppet, you'd tell Christine or whoever it was wandered up on the rack, this is what I want. And of course the strings. I mean, I desperately been trying to keep, because that was one of the things, Gerry had said, and Des I guess he was the producer of Scarlet, wasn't he, I think? Was saying we've got to keep this on schedule. And so I thought one of my biggest things, which is also what happens on a major series, a people series, is the first AD keeps the set on schedule. But it was very difficult, particularly at the beginning, because you kind of get everything set, and then, the string would break on the puppet. Or you would be in a situation where, there was always this total sort of insistence from the puppeteers that the strings were invisible. You could never make them totally invisible. But they would spend, it seemed like hours just with those puppets puffing those damn strings.
That's because they're not totally effectively, in your view.
Sometimes. It depended on the background. And of course, the lip sync, everyone talks about, this wonderful thing of you just, when you read all the stories of Century 21, how you just recorded the voices and they went down the strings and the solenoid. That's bull. It never worked. Well, I guess it did sometimes, but at least half the time, the lip sync operator was just doing it manually with a little toggle switch, because, if it wasn't working, or the mouth would jam, or the solenoid would get stuck. So there were a lot of things like that took a fair bit of getting adjusted to.
Yeah, so fraught with difficulties compared to live action. Did you ever regret in those initial days or weeks or months making this move to puppet productions?
Not in a million years. I mean, it really was. I mean, I remember water pistol fights on the floor. And then Des or Fang or sometimes Gerry would come in furious, this is it, come on. But no, I mean, God, we were all, a lot of us were kids.
Yeah, and just having a great time.
Having a great time, it was fun.
Playing
and it really
and
was
getting paid.
My memory, so many of the older bunch said it wasn't fun by the time it got to Captain Scarlet. It had been fun earlier, but by Scarlet, it was beginning to be professionalized and more. But to me, it was fun.
I'm sure part of that fun, as you said, actually you named a few people, came down to personalities. Could you just, obviously a huge team effort, and I'm not really talking so much professionally here, but could you talk me through a couple of your colleagues who brought something special or you can, especially in hindsight, you can see that they brought something special to that group?
You know, the one I always still think about is Julian Lugren.
Okay.
Julian was, as you know, I mentioned this to Deanna, he'd had polio, so he was on crutches. And Julian and I became very, very good friends. And Julian probably taught me as much about lighting and about positioning of camera angles. And he was a great deal older than I was, obviously. Ian Spurrier, the lip sync operator, I seemed to work with a lot. We stayed in touch for years afterwards. Ken Turner, Alan, to a degree. Dave Lane was a little more sort of removed. I think Christine Glanville, the puppeteer, the chief puppeteer, and Mary was just lovely. Tony Barwick, who gave me my first script writing chance. I mean, it was a family.
What made it a family, though, do you think? I mean, you could say it's just chance, a lot of young, enthusiastic, keen people coming together because they wanted to work, and that brought the energy to it? Or was there some kind of, it was by virtue of who was selected and the way they were brought in, through people who were already kind of pre-vetted, like how you came in? Is there something that brought that magic together, or is it just pure chance that it was such a good place to work?
I have spent a lifetime working in film with big crews, small crews. Some click, some big ones click, some small ones are disastrous. I think it was that a lot of them had worked together for a very long time, long before I came there, and had already established that sort of shorthand. And I think if you didn't fit, you didn't stay. So I think in a way the family atmosphere was already established, and I just felt like I fitted into it.
The nice English public school boy fits straight in, obviously. So your progression then, Leo, from first AD through to, writing, directing, etc. How did you get those opportunities? Who would give you those opportunities?
Well, Gerry gave me those Gerry had always said, if you work out as a first AD, we'll let you direct. And I had asked Tony quite early on if I could try my hand at writing a script. And he'd said, give me an outline, and if I like it, sure, why not? I mean, that was one of the things about Century 21. There was no sense of, if you can do it, they'd give you a shot at it. And I wrote City of the Angels, or Place of the Angels, I think it was called. Tony said, sure, write it. And Gerry or Des or whoever it was, probably Gerry, because I don't remember the thing, said, well, since you've written it, would you like to direct it as well? And so my very first directing gig, period, outside of amateur stuff at school, was the script I'd actually written, which was really cool.
That is really cool, but ultimate pressure, because if it doesn't work out, you're the creator of this particular story, and it's produced with your vision. So did you not sense the pressure that way?
But at 22, you don't think that way.
You just enjoyed it.
You just, I can do it. Come on, can you do it? Of course I can do it. Can you write it? Of course I can write it. I mean, I'm sure I was nervous, but when does, as I say, my memory, I was a pretty arrogant little Turk at the time.
Well, that probably puts you in quite a good place, as long as you're nice with it, and you must have been to fit in with all that. So, were you sort of kind of nurtured through that process? Was Tony acting very kind of closely with you as script editor, and did you have any kind of experienced director backing you up, or was it just straight from the frying pan to the fire?
It was. I mean, I'd made some films of my own, and you're not really directing a puppet show. I mean,
interesting.
The script is there. You're telling the puppeteers what to do. You're so tied to the special effects work, and you've talked those through with Derek and with Keith. And Keith would be the one who'd really sit down and work with you, and then Derek and his team would take it from there. So it's very, very prescribed. So yes, you're telling the puppeteers what to do. You're not recording the narration, the dialogue. That's already done for you. But really, to be fair, directing those, you had I mean, when I did on Joe 90 King for a Day, a year or so later, then I could play with it and try things that hadn't been done. And there was one also, I think, Joe 90 See You Down There, where we could experiment. But at the beginning, it's just, okay, what do you need to do to make it work? And that's make sure you got your close-ups, make sure you got your wide shots, your cutaways, make sure the strings don't show more than they have to, make sure the puppeteers are, I mean, yes, it's directing, but it's sort of painting by numbers.
So more of a kind of logistical direction job than a creative one in that particular example.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's no creative side of it. So there is, but it's not like you're going off and making a movie where you can sort of say, "Oh, let's do this," or "We'll use a steady cam here," or you were very prescribed by what the puppets could do, what they couldn't do. Particularly, once we went to the new puppets, and they really were a pain in the neck with the smaller head. You'd literally be, unlike, the Thunderbird ones, where Mary and the team had them pretty much under control, you'd be doing a nice little head turn, and it was being... and it would just swing sideways.
So technically they were challenging the small-headed
much more challenging. And if you've ever talked to Mary and got her talking about the difference between the old puppets and the new puppets, I'm sure she said the same.
She has spoken quite firmly, even for Mary, about that. Plenty more where that came from. What a nice man, full of honest appraisals and stuff, which is really, really lovely. I did say to Leo right up front before we started recording, I think I may have repeated it there in the interview, that I wanted him to be as candid as he felt comfortable. And now, bearing in mind that his new wife was sat next to him, he gets even more candid in the next part in ways you may not have expected. So that's quite interesting. But, I mean, imagine being in the mid-60s, knowing Thunderbirds, having seen the success, and as a 20-year-old or whatever he was, a 19-year-old, what was he then? About 20, going in and instantly being told, you can direct this.
Yes.
I mean, it was the Zoom Isolly adverts, which, fair enough, which he wasn't very fond of. But, what a great atmosphere to go into and what a great job. And just, it's so nice that all these years later he has such positive recollections of the atmosphere and the sort of the energy there and the people he worked with. Really lovely.
Yeah.
So,
great.
Plenty more to come from Leo. And if you want to find Leo's projects and stuff he's currently working on, you can go to Eaton Creative. Just search for Leo Eaton or Eaton Creative. You'll find him. And do pick up his book, which is very rude. Puppets, Pornography and Penury or something like that. Yes. He was very keen that people should give that a go. And I think if his interview is anything to go by, then it'll be well worth it.
Yes. Great. How interesting. So we look forward to part 2 next week.
Yes, that will happen.
On the Gerry Anderson podcast. Yeah. Very good. Now, over on Twitter, you might be surprised to hear that people have been hashtagging us Gerry Anderson podcast.
Why are they doing that? We didn't ask them to do that, did we?
Yeah, I did, to be honest. They've also been tagging me, Richard M. James, I'm Jamie Anderson. And, here he comes now with the, he's mixing the batter. Well done, Chris. Chris Dalek over there. Kangaroo, for example. Captain Kangaroo, also known as Eric, of course, got in touch via Twitter to say, I've tried to stall by mixing in some of the Big Finish productions, but I'm finally out of episodes of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
What?
I'm all caught up. I know. He says, I've never listened to every episode of a podcast before, but they're just so entertaining. Isn't that nice?
I mean, he must be listening to something else, I think.
Yeah, it's good to have you along, Eric. Lost in Transition said, just arrived at work, 40 minutes into the latest Gerry Anderson podcast, currently listening to Richard James reading his Space Precinct short story. As Monday mornings go, so far, so good. That's good to hear. Mike Plant, rather belatedly, this is from a couple of weeks ago, says, Happy Terrorhawks Day. In celebration, I unveil a 3D modelled Zeroid my nephew made for me. And he posted a lovely picture of some Zeroid art. He says, P.S. I'm sure he'd want me to let you know he'd do a much better job now. Well, I don't know, Mike. Thought that's quite sweet. We also have someone called Chris Dale here who tweeted earlier this week, Hey, Gerry Anderson fans, did you know I do weekly episode commentaries on the Gerry Anderson podcast in a segment called The Randomiser?
Yeah,
it's true. And older randomisers also go up each week in their own separate podcast.
They do, in the Gerry Anderson Randomiser podcast.
Yep. Now, You know, Jamie, that you asked for 10 words or less to describe your feelings towards the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Well, the author's feelings, not my
Yes.
feelings.
No, quite. Well, I'm delighted to say Phil Steer has been in touch. And his 10 words, have a guess?
I really love this podcast. These guys are great.
Phil Steer, Phil Steer, Phil Steer, Phil Steer, Phil Steer. Yeah.
Stick with the successful formula and what you know.
Exactly.
Nice work, Phil.
And finally, Simon tweeted to say that he was getting some very funny looks on the train as he burst out laughing at the Kazoo Space Precinct theme.
Yes, that was rather special.
Genius. Yes, it was. Yeah. All for now, but do keep tweeting us, hashtagging us, Gerry Anderson Podcast, and I'll be sure to read some more out next time.
I look forward to that immensely.
Good.
Something else that listeners look forward to immensely
Yes.
is Chris Dale's Amazing Randomiser.
They do. It's true.
I'm sort of hoping there might be a ghost in the machine this week that might possibly skew us, albeit randomly, towards something rather spooky for the randomiser. What do you
Wouldn't
think?
that be fun? That'd be great.
Well, let's keep our fingers tightly crossed as we hand over to one Christopher Dale and his marvellous and possibly spooky randomiser.
Well, my lord, here it is, the randomiser. I know it's not much to look at, but I must say we're all rather proud of it.
Do not be too proud of this technological terror you have constructed. The ability to watch Gerry Anderson episodes at random is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
Oh, you are absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. And I gather you have already selected today's episode with that very theme in mind.
Indeed. And now you will all witness the full power of the Force. Of life?
Here's Space 1999.
I was getting to that.
I'm sorry. So, welcome back to Space 1999 on the Randomiser, and what an appropriate episode this is for the time of year. It's first going to be aired in. We're coming up on Halloween, although I'm actually recording this on October the 9th.
What do you make of it, Victor?
So I'm quite away from Halloween yet.
Not much. It's a new one on me.
But if I've planned it right, you guys it's going to be the week. When this goes out, it's going to be Halloween week.
It's still not registering, Commander.
And this is easily one of the scariest episodes with the Anderson name on.
Calling Technician Anton Zorev. Good day, this is your alarm call.
And yet it all starts so simply, so almost mundane, you might say. Here we are in the quarters of the Zorev. This is Eva, played by Gay Hamilton, and her husband Anton, played by an actor you might recognise the name, Ian McShane. Don't know if he's gone on to do anything else since this, but it's time for one of them to get up and go to work. 4:30. Who makes Ian McShane get up and go to work at 4:30? And meanwhile, there's a little ball of blue light swooping in over Alpha.
No indication that there's anything out there at all.
I don't like it. Paul, assemble all section heads.
And here we are in the set of the nuclear generating area, one of these, another almost unimaginably huge set for a television series.
All yours, Anton.
Anton's
Sleep well.
Taking over for his friend. You may also recognise the sort of caps on the front of the on one of the walls of the nuclear generator room there. I believe those are actually the models of the silo caps from the nuclear waste dumps in Breakaway.
What is it, John?
I don't know. There's something out there we don't understand.
And everyone slows down. And stopped. Everyone on Alpha is frozen, or at least pretending to be frozen, all except good old Ian McShane, who's working like nothing's happened. And little does he realise. Oh, I love the build-up to this. He's looking around as if he's sensed a presence, someone else in the room. There's nobody there. No one physical, at least, but we have a glowing blue ball of energy. that's looking for a home. And something else I have to call up in this episode, and there are so many things that make this such an effective little horror story. The music, which is not Barry Gray. I believe this is all library music.
This is Technician Zorek. Please acknowledge main mission.
And I think this show made really good use of library music like this from time to time, where
Answer. Emergency in generating.
Barry Gray's music is obviously phenomenal, but
Please acknowledge main mission.
something like this is far more unconventional and unsettling. It's designed, it's almost bordering on like a sound effect. And here we go. This zoom back from Zoref as the thing hits him, and then a crash zoom in. Goes all blurry and his face is purple. And our blue glowing friend has found a home. Because if you're going to take over anybody's body, really, why not go for something classy? Why not take over Ian McShane? And this slow motion fall of Zoref. This is one of many interesting directorial touches in this episode, which we'll touch on more later. This is one of David Tomblin's.
What was I saying?
Probably one of his finest directing works in Anderson, I would have thought.
Generating area. This is main mission.
So now everyone's unfrozen.
Technician Zoref.
Just in time to find that Zoref is unconscious.
Report your situation.
I love that tilt of the camera upside down, as if that's his whole life going upside down as well. So we're back from the opening titles, and one interesting thing about this episode, one of many, is that this was actually the second episode shown, in the UK at least, on first broadcast, which must have been quite a shock for audiences at the time who were expecting something a bit more spaceship focused. Instead they got this this claustrophobic little horror story.
I'm alright.
Although I suppose it is the show sort of setting up its one of its stocks in trade. Yes, it's big, huge space opera, but
No sign of any damage.
it can also scare the pants off you like nothing else on television.
Commander, I'll check the area out.
Oh, no, you're coming with me. I want to know what caused you to pass out.
I'm all right now. You better go. This is one area we can't afford to take chances with. Check it out thoroughly.
But John, this is nuclear generating area 3. We presumably have at least 2 others. We can afford to risk this one.
And you're sure this has never happened before?
No. Well, not that I know of.
And it's such a huge set to make for just this one episode, although it does return in various forms in 1 or 2 other episodes. Anyway.
What's the matter, Doctor?
Oh, it's nothing to do with you. One of the monitors, it seems to have failed.
First sign of a larger problem.
Dr. Matthias.
Yes, Doctor?
One of the medical monitors is blown. Would you fix it, please?
Yes, Doctor.
Because he doesn't have anything else to do.
The instruments have recorded a massive discharge of energy. Fault in the reactor? Well, this energy force was outside the nuclear reactor. A radiation leak. A fracture.
Glowing blue thingy from space?
What caused it? That's a good question.
I do find it odd that after that opening teaser where everyone on Alpha, well, not everyone on Alpha, but everyone in main mission was looking at the glowing blue thing from space,
Zoref has radiation sickness.
they almost seem to sort of
A mild state of shock.
forget that they saw it after the teaser, like in that discussion there.
If there is a leak, we've got to find it.
They're not thinking, could this be something to do with that strange blue glowing thing? Nah, it's more likely a reactor leak. Anyway, over in the Zoref's pad.
Doctor's orders were to rest.
I feel fine.
So Eva's just got out of the shower. And I do like that the way he grabs her there, almost as if he's slightly more in touch with his more...
I felt cold.
Let's say baser instincts that are going to gradually take hold as this thing that's now inside him
Leave it!
grows stronger. Also with little outbursts and odd moments like that.
Please.
And as much praise as Ian McShane gets for this, and he is absolutely superb in this, I also think Gay Hamilton is one of the more underrated guest performers in this first season. She just seems like such a sweet, good woman, and she's so, like when he yells at her there and she just looks at him sort of like, oh, a hurt little sad puppy. And as the story unfolds, of course, she's going to become a decidedly tragic figure, as indeed is her poor old husband here, feeling a bit weird and sitting near a lamp. Oh, now, after a bit of a stare from Zorif, the lamp's gone out.
What's the matter?
Well, the lamp must have blown.
Did Dr. Russell check you thoroughly?
I'm all right. It's just being cooped up in here. I need some fresh air.
We could all do with a bit of that on Alpha.
Yes, well, I'll have to settle for a walk down the corridor, won't I?
And something else I like about these two is the fact that they are
Scan record.
a married couple, which is something we've never seen before on this show. We won't see again in the first season.
Energy force.
The closest we get is in the very first episode of season 2, Bill and Annette Fraser.
All the systems in the generating area are
But that kind of doesn't count because they weren't even seen in the same scene together at any point, and Annie disappears after that episode. So
If it didn't originate on Alpha, which is what you're saying, where did it come from? There's no energy source anywhere near us in space that could have caused that.
Except for...
There obviously is.
You guys saw it. Why? I really don't get that. Why they pretend for so much of this episode that they didn't see the thing that they saw. Is that a deliberate part of the story I'm missing? Did the blue glowing thingy, like, when it froze time, did it also affect their memories of it?
Trying to find out what hit you.
I suppose it...
How are you feeling, eh?
All right now.
I mean, there is that line of Koenig's after they get unfrozen of, oh, that's strange, what was I saying? But it doesn't seem to add much to the story beyond delaying the Alphans
Number 4 is 10.
in finding out the truth.
Relax. Everything's all right in here.
Well, I'm not very good at relaxing.
Ergomania, it's called. The compulsive need to work.
This is a nice character as well. Mark Dominix is Zorif's friend and colleague in the generator section. Although next time we see this room in Alpha Child, it's absolutely crawling with people, including Rula Lenska. But she's not here this week. It's just Ian McShane having a funny turn.
Anton? Cold. I'm freezing.
Well, one thing that'll warm him up, a nice cup of coffee. But unfortunately, this is not Shadow we're dealing with here.
Drink that, Anton.
Coffee on Alpha apparently comes out frozen solid.
What's wrong with me?
And he falls, and Dominix grabs him, and that was a bad move. Yep, Dominix is quite literally frozen stiff. Anton's got another bad headache, which is about to get even worse when he notices his frozen friend. And again, some more interesting camera movements here, and I think there's some odd almost zoom effects on the shots at times.
Technician Mark Dominic's life functions terminated.
And sometimes they say if you can notice the direction, it often means that the director isn't doing a very good job. It's like in editing, the only time you really notice editing sometimes is if it's not working out all that well. But in the case of this episode, it's the exact opposite. You notice the direction because it's something so out of the norm and so effective with this. And here we go. Dominic's body being led away.
All we know is that he died 7 minutes ago. Death seems to have been caused by sudden and instant freezing.
And this is one of my favourite sort of sub-genres of Space 1999 episodes, where there's
Thing in here that can do that.
There's a killing thing on the loose, and
It's got to be a connection.
You just see body after body being wheeled away on gurneys.
Whatever we're looking for has got to be linked to this generating area.
So the more I think about this, the more it must be that the Alphans genuinely don't remember the blue glowy thing.
What's wrong?
And I have seen this episode, I would have to guess,
I asked you a question, Anton.
probably at least a dozen times over the years.
What's the trouble, darling?
Like much of first season Space 1999, it is almost an episode I can recite from memory.
Attention all sections Alpha.
Is that genuinely a part of the story, and I've only just realised now
Area is forbidden.
that the Alphans forgot about have got amnesia about the blue glowy thing?
It's Dominic's.
Am I really that thick? My goodness.
Dominic's dead. How do you know?
I was there.
It was awesome.
Eva, sit down over there.
I love as well his attempt to explain here. But of course he doesn't have the words.
Anton, you're not in any trouble, are you?
You've got to trust me, Eva.
Just because I say I was there when somebody died, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm in trouble. Come on, woman.
I must see Dr. Ross.
Let me come with you.
No, I don't want to get you involved. Now, promise me you'll stay here.
But Anton...
Now, promise me!
All right. I'll wait for you here. But if you're sick, you will tell me, won't you?
Yeah, unless I've killed anyone else, maybe. But if I do, you'll be the first to know. Yeah, I love this gradual shift in Ian McShane's performance from this loyal, loving husband with almost a playful side we saw when he grabbed her when she came out of the shower, and now it's like he's got to distance himself from her.
Look at this first plate again.
Even though he doesn't quite know why.
Station when Zoref had his accident. This is one that was taken at the moment of Dominic's death. Same energy force.
I mean, they're even marked as blue glowy things on the chart.
From space once, but not twice.
They genuinely don't know. I'm amazed I haven't figured that out before now.
And this alien force is here, right now. Somewhere on Alpha.
Because it doesn't really add that much to the story that they've been delayed for like 15 minutes. It wouldn't hurt for them to say a couple of times, hey, maybe that's that blue glowy thing. I don't see what the amnesia angle adds to it, and that's... I'm sorry, I won't mention that anymore because I have harped on about that, but it is strange I've only just realised that. Anyway.
Are you all right?
Anton's made his way to medical centre. The nurse at the door is just going off duty. And I love that thing Ian McShane is doing with his face as well. He's mashing his hands against his face and just rubbing his hands over his skin, and when he takes his hands away you can see in his eyes it's not Anton in control anymore, it's this thing, especially here as he starts to stalk the nurse with this horrible hungry look in his eyes. Rather than alert anybody that she's A, being stalked, and B, it's by a man who seems to be having some sort of well, he's now drawing the energy out of one of the walls in the corridor. And I don't know whether this is just a directorial touch or if this is something that's genuinely happening to this poor girl. Zoref is still moving in real time, but she's running at like half speed. And considering we saw the thing slow down time earlier, I'm wondering if this is her similarly being affected by that. She's just missed the door to the travel tube to escape. Oh. And the echoing sound of Zoref's footsteps. She's got nowhere to go. The lights are going out as he walks up to her, and admittedly, this is a bit lame, where she tries to run away without realising that she's got nowhere to go. It's like it's like she doesn't realise that until she actually gets to a wall that's a foot away from her. But now there's nowhere to go.
Medical orderly Hillary Preston. Life functions terminated.
Helena and Bob are like, oh god, another one. But that is also another just chilling moment where you have the build up to that moment of her death, and then just
same as Dominic's,
the cold voice of the computer saying she's screwed.
You can take her away now.
Another one for the morgue.
We see this freezing effect. Those two deaths were a result of total heat loss. Now, light is simply another form of heat. And in both cases, the loss was sudden and complete. Whatever this alien force is, John, it seems that it's consuming heat.
Here's a callous moment coming up.
Of course, that's just pure theory.
Eva sees Matthias and an orderly wheeling the dead nurse away on a gurney. but they haven't covered her face over with the blanket. So Eva sees this frozen dead body, and Matthias and the other guy just walk past as if to say, no questions, lady. It's just another day, another weird death on Alpha.
Dr. Russell, where's Anton? Well, he came to see you, didn't he?
No, I haven't seen him since I examined him.
Oh, and again, that hurt puppy dog expression. Poor Eva.
Now tell me what's wrong, Eva.
I don't know. Anton's sick. Something happened when he was with Dominic's.
I'm concerned about it, John. I think you should check.
Thank you, Helena.
Well, a hysterical woman says her husband was there when a murder happened, Victor. It's not much to go on, I agree, but we should probably do something.
Cut off.
Anton Zuref last entered generating area, 2045 lunar time.
He was there when Dominic's died.
And he broke that coffee cup, damn it. Oh, that's another gorgeous shot of there's so many in this episode, but this total white image, and then Zoref just leans round the corner of a corridor wall. And because the image is slightly out of focus, you don't expect to suddenly see this one eye looking back at you. But if Zoref needs heat and light, where on Alpha is he going to find that? Well, we've got a solarium here, which appeared a few times in the second series, which was always packed with lots of people. In this episode, it's just got 2 or 3 scattered around, although it is much larger than the solarium we see in the second series. Looks like it might be a redress of the command office set. Oh, an more interesting direction. There's a sort of Mrs. Robinson type shot framed through a woman's leg as Zoref enters the room. Advances on this blonde lady.
Commander, fluctuation in the energy levels. Section C, the solarium.
Alan.
What? Oh, you want me to come with you? Okay. So the power's going out in the solarium as Zoref's soaking up all the energy. And I love the reaction of the blonde lady is like... Zoref is right next to her and he's bright purple. And of course this gives us another little moment for...
Security, solarium here. We need some help in here. Please come quickly.
Tanya! Who also had a prominent scene in the first season Space 1999 episode we covered, Guardian of Piri, which was the one made directly before this. But now... Oh, is she going to become Zoref's latest victim?
Hold it, Zoref!
Nah, Koenig and Co are here. And he's clever enough to zap the power rather than Zoref. Oh, and he's down. Very nearly touched Tanya and the other lady. But they're all right.
He's alive.
I don't know how, after absorbing almost all the power, but we can't leave him here.
We can't move him. It's too dangerous.
Koenig's flashing a light in his face.
Seem to be absorbing energy now.
What's the stupidest thing he could do to check that he's not a risk? And even he knows it's a gamble. He'll put his hand on his face. Oh, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Nah, he's all right.
He's safe.
For the moment, at least.
Bung him in the freezer. I also love with this that, again, the Alphans are confronted with a problem they have no experience of before. They've got no idea how to treat.
Everything right away.
Yes, Doctor.
So all they can do is sort of not blunder around, but sort of make the best attempt they can to deal with the problem, which in this instance involves having Dr. Matthias flashing little lights at him, and when that doesn't work, we'll strap him to a gurney and
take him into the observation room.
Put him in the scary blue room, because that's what you do on Alpha when you want to make someone look really scary.
Well, if there is any connection between Zoref and the energy losses, that connection is broken now.
You put them in that blue room with that really sinister, creepy blue light. They did it in Breakaway with the Metaprobe astronauts, and they do it again in The Troubled Spirit. It's almost like anyone who goes into that room and has that light turned on them is just, they'd be better off dead.
And Helena, there's a security man right outside.
So when Zoref escapes, you've got a get-out-of-jail-free card. He doesn't have a name, so he's willing to die in place of you. But Zoref won't get out.
That's it. That's the force that killed Dominic's and the girl.
Whoever she was, I don't care to remember her name.
Zoref. His force has only been on Alpha for 10 hours, but already it's growing like mad, out of all proportion to the heat or energy it's consuming.
Well, Victor, we can speculate forever, but that's not our problem. What we've got to do is destroy that force while it's still relatively weak.
And something else I find interesting with this episode, for all the genuine horror moments, and there are plenty in here, that I may be giving away the ending here a bit. I'm going to assume most of you have seen this. The fact that the episode is called Force of Life, the fact that ultimately you find out there is I was going to say a positive purpose behind what's going on, but that's not really fair. It's something that's neither good nor bad. It's just doing its thing. I find that very thought-provoking and very interesting. It's not just something evil and malevolent, despite what it's doing with Zoref. And speaking of Zoref, he's now awake, and Helena, in her infinite wisdom, has decided to do some work right in front of the room he's in, with her back to him. Probably not her smartest move, especially as he's breaking out. He's out. And again, interesting direction stuff. He's in the room with a blue light, but as he looks up, only his eyes weren't illuminated. They were regular flesh colour. Oh, so many good, interesting shots in this episode. But then David Tomblin was a director on The Prisoner before transferring to UFO. So it only makes sense that his direction would be weird and interesting, or even downright sinister at times in this. Zoref is out. Helena can't believe it, that the man who was obviously going to escape has escaped. And he's coming towards her. Drained all the power. Another weird lens on the camera there, to make him seem really far away and her really close.
Commander, emergency in the medical center. All power gone. Automatic systems not functioning.
Helena.
Open the door!
Yeah, here comes our guard friend. He's going to come and save the day. Here he comes.
Look out!
And there he goes. Well, that's another one done. Oh, dear. But he doesn't kill Helena. He's had enough. He's drained enough from the security guard to keep him going for a while. I'd love to know what people thought of this back in 75. As the second episode of the show, at least in the UK, this is a really weird choice.
All Alpha personnel are warned that Technician Zoref is highly dangerous.
This is one of those few episodes, I think there's only a couple in the first series, where you don't even see an eagle.
During this emergency, all sidearms are to be worn.
You'd think they'd want to sort of push the
Shoot to kill.
the big budget nature of the series, the effects, the visuals, and instead it's like, no, full on horror.
How quickly can we shut down all moon-based power? You mean shut down the reactors? No, just the supplies leading from them.
Oh, well, it would take a matter of seconds, but in 20 minutes, all our sick in the intensive care unit will die. In 30 minutes, our recycling plants will be damaged beyond repair. At 40, our oxygen will give out.
These are the areas affected so far. Severe power loss in every section of this quadrant. You start to see a sense of direction.
Commander, we have Zoref on visual. He's in...
Oh, situation's very serious. Victor's got out his dry wipe glass board and a marker pen. That's something I love with this character, is for such a high-tech base, he's a very low-tech kind of guy.
Let's see corridor 15.
Power in corridor 15 also failed.
Put up corridor 16.
Oh, it's the Carter family again. They've got themselves locked in another corridor.
Corridor D50 clear.
He must be in 50.
No power in 50.
That's it.
How did they get in there?
There's only one section left in that quadrant.
The generating area. If he gets to that reactor, we're all dead. We'll never be able to stop him from getting to the other generating areas. Paul, alert security, generating area 3. Tell him we're on our way. Alan?
Also, what makes this weird as a choice for second episode is
Corridor 50.
it's clear what everyone's role is, except for Alan, because we're not seeing him fly any ships this week.
It's now somewhere in your area. You are warned to avoid contact.
Oh, here's Sarah Bullen's Kate and some other guy. They're running from Zoref.
What does the last position?
Approaching section F.
Tony Allen got a line.
Paul?
My goodness, that doesn't happen often.
Cutting power now, Commander.
Another weird piece of incidental music here. Again from a music library, but every so often this piece of music, and it's especially noticeable if you hear it on the soundtrack albums, it sounds like someone polishing windows.
Disconnect him quickly.
There's like a sort of squeak sound of someone rubbing something against glass, which admittedly is not as interesting as what's happening on screen right now. Dr. Mathias is losing a patient as they're shutting down power all over the base. Meanwhile, Eva...
Get back!
She's meeting Sarah Bullen and the other guy coming from the generating area, but she's got to find her husband. She's not stopping. And now poor old Anton is shambling up the corridors, barely able to put one foot in front of another. There's no power left anywhere to absorb.
I may be able to cut him off.
All right, but watch yourself.
Meals on Wheels has arrived to find her husband.
Anton.
Oh. And what's so effective about this is Anton hasn't said anything for like 20 minutes by this point.
Come with me, Anton. We can help you.
Oh.
The last thing he said to her was to stay in the quarters, stay there safe.
You must come away from here. There's a chance we can help you.
Don't touch.
She's the only person who can get through to him now.
Go back, Anton.
She's the only one he'll respond to, and he is still in there.
Keep away.
But just barely.
Keep away from me!
And that's it. He's gone. And now he's looking at her with just this cold detachment. And that look on Gay Hamilton's face when she realises her husband just isn't there anymore. And the fact that she doesn't move, until she gets saved by Alan. I almost feel like that's her sort of just accepting death.
Down there. Hello, you take her.
But luckily Alan was there to save her, and Anton didn't grab them. Also, that glass stand in the corridor full of rocks. That must be fun all the times the moon gets buffeted and thrown around the cosmos. Whose job do you think it is to pick all that up again after it's tipped over?
Commander Koenig.
Yes, our people are starting to die.
Is there anyone I know, Paul?
Too late. I request permission to restore power immediately.
Not until I say so. And that's final.
Oh dear. Everyone's all hot and sweaty and not dealing very well. Especially not Anton, but he's nearly there. He's outside the doors of Nuclear Generating Area 3. Oh, and again that soundtrack is so creepy and so strange as he's trying to prise the doors apart. Oh, Victor.
It's just on the best of planets with clockwork hard. I'm all right, come on.
Yep, acknowledgement of minor piece of serious continuity made, and on we go.
Darth, come away from there.
Oh. And without being able to get through the door.
He can't do it. He's too weak.
Where's he going to get his energy? Well, we've got 5 people here we could tuck into. And 3/4 of the children watching this episode back in 1975 just wet themselves. That is horrifying.
Of course, he had to go for us. We're the only source of heat around.
Alan fires his laser at Zoref on full. He's absolutely charred beyond recognition, and yet...
He's alive. The laser regenerator.
And it's just the man, the uniform is absolutely black. His skin is peeling off. It almost looked like his back was going to burst into flames, and yet all you can focus on are those horrible glowing white eyes. Oh. And I believe I covered this episode on my top 10 scariest Space 1999 moments video on the over on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel. I think this came in at number 3. This must have been terrifying back in the day. Because if nothing else, it is really graphic injury detail. Especially this close-up on the charred face. Which I assume, I doubt they put Ian McShane through this makeup. I don't know who's playing Zorif at this point. But I'd be really surprised if it was McShane. Anyway, the Zorif thing is now pulling open the door to the nuclear reactor. I also like that when he's yanking on the door and he backs in, his shoulder crashes into the camera a couple of times, almost like it's a documentary. And that's driven home even more as we follow him into the reactor. Oh, that's it. And there we go. Big old explosion. As Koenig and Co. are scrambling their way around the corridors, being thrown all over the place. All I can think of is that glass tower full of rocks, which has been knocked over yet again. We've got some reused footage from Breakaway here. We've got some unused footage from Breakaway here. That was even a very brief glimpse of Commissioner Simmons. We've already covered his horrific departure, but he was back for a little bit of stock footage there. And out of the ashes of the generator section, we have a blue glowy thing. Is it slightly bigger than the one that visited them at the start of the episode? I don't know, because, rather wonderfully, there are no explanations. There can only ever be guesses as to what on earth has happened here.
Power level stabilizing.
Victor, gonna be all right. If that force had gotten to those other reactors,
Just one was enough for its purpose. Some sort of creative evolution. A stage in its development. Perhaps the beginnings. A birth. Star.
I love that.
I like that.
I love, again, it ties into the title of it being a force of life. Despite all the death it's caused and the destruction it wrought, it was just a thing doing its thing. And also the idea that it's going to go off and become a star, potentially. That's rather haunting.
Everybody tried their best to help. We just didn't know how.
So now with Zorif ripped away from her, Eva is all on her own.
I don't understand.
Eva, we're living in deep space. There's so many things we don't understand.
And you'd have to imagine as well that obviously the loss of any loved one is horrific, but in this situation where there is so little to cling on to, living on Alpha, knowing that everyone you knew on Earth is gone,
I'd selected Anton.
It must be so much harder for poor old Eva.
Got to try to help each other to understand.
Which is a sentiment that might have more meaning if A, you didn't immediately leave after saying it, and B, we ever saw Eva again. And as Eva watches the blue glowy thing that was once her husband take off into space, that was Force of Life, and I think you could probably tell by the way I've been talking about it, I absolutely love that one. I cannot get enough of that one. It's beautifully directed, some superb guest performances in there from Gay Hamilton and especially Ian McShane. It all adds up to one of the scariest episodes of not only Space 1999, but one of the scariest things with the Anderson name on. Well worth a look this Halloween season.
Hang on.
There he is.
Jamie.
What?
Jamie, what are you doing?
I'm what? Oh, sorry.
What are you doing?
I'm watching Lovejoy. Hang on, sorry. Sorry.
We're halfway through a podcast.
I know, but Dudley Sutton.
You got sidetracked again, didn't you?
Well, it's because obviously, I mean,
yeah,
Force of Life. Yes, it's a scary episode, and it's got one of the creepiest images of all Anderson stuff. And when the corpse wakes up and stuff. But it's Ian McShane, and he was Lovejoy.
He
obviously
was,
and I loved Lovejoy.
Yeah. I'm just glad you didn't play any Deadwood. A lot of swearing in Deadwood.
No,
was him
no
as well,
Deadwood.
wasn't it?
No. And what was that other thing he was in? Death Race? Was it Death Race or? No,
Yeah.
not Death. Yeah, one of those. Anyway, yeah.
Right.
Gosh, I love Lovejoy. Did you like Lovejoy,
Yes.
listeners? I do hope so. But yes, Force of Life, terrifying. But I can't look at Ian McShane and not think Lovejoy, the sort of
course.
antique dealer / detective.
I think that's why he left for the States, isn't it? Because he just couldn't get past that here.
He was
in the UK.
typecast, but he's got a
exactly.
great voice.
Yes, and a great craggy face. A great sort of screen presence, isn't it?
Not sure it says that on his spotlight, but
What's wrong with a craggy face?
nothing. Everyone loves a craggy face.
Oh, I can't wait for the day when I have a craggy face.
Richard. Hopefully not as craggy could have burnt corpse face of Ian McShane in Force of Life.
No.
So if you have not yet watched Force of Life, I suggest you watch it on Halloween because it will. It's perfect viewing, I think.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Right, thank you, Chris. Hopefully something less spooky next week. The only thing more horrific than that would be another episode of Torchy, so thank goodness it didn't give us that.
Yeah.
That just about brings us to the end of this week's Gerry Anderson podcast, doesn't it? I think, Richard James?
Think you might be right, yes. I think we've been there and done that, haven't we?
Yes.
I've got the T-shirt.
Is it the Porky the Butchery Boy T-shirt by any chance?
It is. Genius.
It is rather lovely. Good old Lee Sullivan. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like I want to watch Force of Life now, and maybe some Lovejoy.
Yep.
Definitely not Torchy. I shall wear my Porky the Butchery Boy T-shirt, though.
Yes, I think you should.
And hopefully we'll recover from all things terrifying and spooky for next week for Pod 125 and more Leo Eaton, more of you and me and Chris Dale, I suppose.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right, well, farewell for now.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Oh, I can get back to Lovejoy now.
Oh, Jamie. What? Oh, honestly.
What, do you not remember it?
I remember Lovejoy, yes. Lovejoy and Bergerac were my two staples of the week.
Oh.
Tinker,
That's a
I
great
think, wasn't
little...
he?
Yeah, it was Tink, yeah.
Yeah, all right, yeah. Oh, no, I remember. Yes.
Yeah.
She was great. Now, wasn't she great?
Yeah, and Douglas Watkinson wrote this particular one.
Yes,
so.
yes, that's right, yeah.
Oh, right.
Do you want a cup of hot chocolate while we settle back and watch this?
Oh, yes, please. Let's do it.
All right.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.